February 2026. Tehran. Two American carrier strike groups are positioned off Iran's coast. Over 120 combat aircraft have surged into the region. Tomahawk-equipped destroyers are on station. B-2 bombers could be hours from launching. The United States has given Iran an ultimatum. 10 days to agree to Washington's terms. Dismantle the nuclear program, stop enriching uranium, reduce ballistic missile ranges, cut support for militant groups across the Middle East. Or face military strikes. Iran's response? No. Not maybe, not we'll consider it, not let's negotiate details, just no. Modern conflict never comes down to strength alone. Success depends on planning, coordination, and the ability to adapt when the map changes faster than anyone expects. That same principle sits at the center of today's sponsor, Supremacy World War III, a free online PvP strategy game built around modern global warfare. Every match you play lasts for weeks, which means your decisions can influence every step of the campaign. You begin by taking command of a real country and planning its future, from building up your economy to researching new weapon systems. Deploy tanks, submarines, and jets. Form alliances when diplomacy serves you, or take the initiative when it's time to move. You compete against as many as 99 real players operating on the same map in real time, each with their own strategy and ambitions. So, no two campaigns unfold the same way. For viewers who enjoy long-term strategy, this game rewards planning as much as it does decisive action. It's available on both PC and mobile, and new players that sign up for my link will receive the seasonal unit, the Elite Railgun, with a value of $40 completely for free. If you want a strategy experience that respects planning, coordination, and real-time decision-making, the link is in the description. Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, the man who had ruled Iran for over 3 decades, is betting that confrontation is less dangerous than surrender. He's gambling that a limited war with the United States is survivable, that accepting Washington's demands is not. And he's willing to risk everything on that calculation. This is why Iran refuses to blink, and why that refusal might be the biggest mistake the regime has ever made. To understand why Iran won't back down, you have to understand what Washington is demanding. This isn't about minor adjustments to policy. It's not about tweaking enrichment levels or limiting a few missile tests. From Tehran's perspective, the United States is demanding total strategic surrender. Secretary of State Marco Rubio laid out the conditions publicly. Iran must end uranium enrichment entirely, reduce the range of its ballistic missiles so they can no longer threaten Israel, halt all support for armed groups across the region, and change how the Islamic Republic treats its own citizens. These aren't negotiating points, they're ultimatums. And for Iran's leadership, they represent the complete dismantling of everything the regime has built over the past 40 years. Start with the nuclear program. Iran insists it's peaceful, designed for energy production, not weapons. Officially, Tehran denies any intention to build a nuclear bomb. But everyone knows the truth. The nuclear program isn't just about electricity. It's about deterrence. Iran has mastered the uranium enrichment cycle. That means the country has the infrastructure, the knowledge, and the materials to move toward weaponization if it decides to. Strategists call this threshold capability. You're not building a bomb today, but you could build one tomorrow if you needed to. And that possibility, that latent capacity, functions as leverage. It tells adversaries, attack us, and we might respond by crossing the nuclear threshold. That uncertainty creates hesitation. Hesitation creates deterrence. Stripping away the nuclear program means stripping away that deterrence. And for a country surrounded by hostile neighbors and facing the world's most powerful military, deterrence is survival. Then there's the ballistic missile program. Iran's air force is outdated. Most of its jets date back to before the 1979 revolution. F-4 Phantoms, F-14 Tomcats, purchased from the United States decades ago when Iran and America were allies. Since then, international sanctions have prevented Iran from acquiring modern fighter aircraft. No F-35s, no Su-57s, no advanced air-to-air capabilities. So, Iran adapted. Instead of relying on an air force, it built missiles. Hundreds of them, thousands maybe. Short range, medium range, long range, ballistic missiles that can hit targets across the Middle East. Cruise missiles that can strike naval vessels in the Persian Gulf. These missiles are Iran's substitute for air power. They're the regime's primary offensive capability. Washington wants Iran to reduce the range of these missiles so they can't reach Israel. That means capping them at ranges that make them useless for anything beyond local defense. For Tehran, that's unacceptable. It's like asking the United States to ground its Air Force and promise to never fly combat missions again. It's not going to happen. And then there's the axis of resistance. This is what Iran calls its network of allied armed groups scattered across the Middle East. Hezbollah in Lebanon, Hamas in Gaza, the Houthis in Yemen, Shiite militias in Iraq and Syria. These groups aren't just allies, they're strategic assets. Iran doesn't have powerful international partners. Russia provides some support, China buys Iranian oil, but neither country is willing to go to war to defend Tehran. So Iran built its own security architecture, a network of proxy forces designed to keep threats away from Iran's borders and protect power across the region. When Israel bombs Gaza, Hamas fights back. When tensions rise in Lebanon, Hezbollah mobilizes. When shipping lanes need disrupting, the Houthis launch missiles at vessels in the Red Sea. All of this serves Iran's interests, and none of it requires Iranian soldiers to cross international borders. It's strategic depth, a buffer zone made of allied militias instead of friendly nations. Washington wants Iran to cut support for these groups. Stop funding them, stop arming them, stop coordinating with them. But from Tehran's perspective, that's like asking the United States to abandon NATO. These groups are Iran's first line of defense. Without them, Iran stands alone. So when Secretary of State Rubio demands that Iran dismantles its nuclear program, reduce its missile capabilities, and abandon its regional allies, what he's really demanding is this: give up everything that keeps you safe. Trust that we won't destroy you once you're defenseless. And Ayatollah Khamenei is saying no. Because in his calculation, accepting those terms is more dangerous than fighting a war. Here's the math Khamenei is doing. Option 1. Accept Washington's demands. Dismantle the nuclear program, reduce missile capabilities, cut ties with allied militias. Result? Iran becomes strategically vulnerable. No deterrence, no leverage, no buffer zone. Completely exposed to enemies on all sides. At that point, what stops the United States from demanding regime change? What stops Israel from launching airstrikes whenever it wants? What stops Saudi Arabia from exploiting Iran's weakness? Nothing. From Khamenei's perspective, surrender doesn't guarantee survival, it guarantees slow-motion collapse. Maybe not this year, maybe not next, but eventually. Option 2. Refuse Washington's demands. Risk a military confrontation with the United States. Result? Iran gets hit. Hard. Nuclear sites destroyed. Missile bases obliterated. Command centers flattened. But the regime survives. The Islamic Republic has endured wars before. The Iran-Iraq War in the 1980s killed hundreds of thousands of Iranians and lasted 8 years. The regime survived. Even if the United States launches devastating airstrikes, even if key infrastructure is destroyed, even if senior leaders are killed, the core institutions remain. The Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, the intelligence apparatus, the clerical establishment. These structures have deep roots. They're not easy to eliminate from the air. So in Khamenei's calculation, a limited war is survivable. Total strategic surrender is not. That's why Iran is choosing confrontation. But there's a flaw in this calculation. A big one. Wars don't unfold according to plan. Tehran is betting that Washington's objectives will be limited. Degrade nuclear facilities, destroy missile production sites, maybe hit a few command centers. That's what happened in June 2025 during Operation Midnight Hammer. 7 B-2 bombers struck 3 nuclear sites: Fordow, Natanz, Esfahan. The strikes caused massive damage, but the regime survived. Iran retaliated with ballistic missiles armed at US bases in Qatar. Most were intercepted. No American casualties. The conflict ended after 12 days. Tehran is betting that a second round will play out the same way. Limited strikes, limited retaliation, both sides declare victory, everyone moves on. But what if it doesn't go that way? What if the United States doesn't stop at nuclear sites? What if Trump decides to target senior leadership? What if the opening strike kills Ayatollah Khamenei? Khamenei is 85 years old. He's ruled Iran for over 30 years. His death would create a succession crisis at the worst possible moment. Who takes over? There's no clear successor. The regime has deliberately avoided naming one to prevent internal power struggles. If al-Khamenei dies during a war, different factions within the regime will fight for control. The Revolutionary Guard, hardline clerics, pragmatic politicians, all competing for power while the country is under attack. That's not stability, that's chaos. And then there's the domestic situation. Just weeks ago, Iran experienced the deadliest protests since the 1979 revolution. Millions of Iranians took to the streets demanding an end to the regime. The government responded with overwhelming force. Security forces opened fire on unarmed protesters. Thousands were killed, over 26,000 arrested. The protests stopped, but not because people changed their minds. They stopped because people were terrified. That fear is the only thing holding the country together right now. If the United States launches airstrikes that kill senior leaders and cripple the security apparatus, what happens? The protesters come back, angrier, bolder, and this time the regime might not have the strength to suppress them. A weakened Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps can't maintain control if half the country is in open rebellion. This is the risk Tehran is taking, betting that a limited war won't spiral into regime collapse. But history is full of leaders who made that same bet and lost. Meanwhile, Iran is preparing for the worst. Satellite imagery from late January 2026 shows intensive fortification efforts at key sites. At the Parchin military complex, Iran has poured concrete shields over a new facility and covered it with soil. That site was bombed by Israel in 2024. Now it's rebuilt and hardened. At Fordow, one of the nuclear sites hit during Operation Midnight Hammer, tunnel entrances have been buried and reinforced. Access points have been fortified with additional layers of concrete. At Natanz, another bomb site, repairs are complete, and new defenses have been added. Iran is also conducting joint naval exercises with Russia in the Sea of Oman and northern Indian Ocean. The drills started on February 19th. Live fire exercises, rocket launches, temporary closure of parts of the Strait of Hormuz. Over 20% of the world's oil passes through the Strait of Hormuz every day. Closing it, even briefly, sends a message. Iran can disrupt global energy supplies if it wants to. Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov issued a public warning. Any U.S. strike on Iran would have serious repercussions. Russia isn't going to go to war to defend Iran, but Moscow is signaling that it won't sit quietly either. All of this is designed to raise the cost of attacking Iran, make it harder, make it riskier, make Washington think twice. But it's not stopping the buildup. The USS Abraham Lincoln Carrier Group is already in position off Oman. The USS Gerald R. Ford is crossing the Mediterranean. Over 120 combat aircraft have deployed to the region. Everything is ready, and Trump's deadline is ticking down. 10 days, maybe less. Iran is betting that defiance will force Washington to negotiate, that the threat of a messy, costly war will make Trump back off. But that's not how Trump operates. He's already bombed Iran once. In June 2025, he authorized Operation Midnight Hammer without hesitation. 7 B-2 bombers, bunker-busting bombs, massive destruction. And when asked about it later, Trump said,
"We had to send the B-2s."
No regret, no second guessing, just a statement of fact. Now he's threatening to do it again. This time, he's assembling even more firepower. 2 carrier strike groups instead of 1. Over 120 aircraft instead of a few dozen. A larger, more sustained campaign. If Iran thinks Trump is bluffing, they're wrong. And if Iran thinks it can survive a second round of strikes without catastrophic consequences, they might be wrong about that too. Because the risks aren't just military, they're political, economic, social. Iran's economy is already collapsing. Inflation is out of control. The currency is worthless. Major banks are failing. People can't afford basic necessities. The US sanctions have done what they were designed to do: strangle Iran's economy, cut off access to international markets, force the regime into a corner. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent said it bluntly.
President Trump ordered Treasury and our OFAC division, Office of Foreign Asset Control, to put maximum pressure on Iran, and it's worked. Because in December, their economy collapsed.
The protests in late 2025 weren't just about politics, they were about economics. People are starving, and they blame the government. Now, add airstrikes on top of that. Infrastructure destroyed, oil exports disrupted, power grids damaged. How does the regime survive when it can't pay salaries, when it can't provide electricity, when it can't feed its people? The answer: it might not. This is the gamble Tehran is taking, choosing confrontation over capitulation, betting that defiance is less dangerous than surrender. But the math doesn't add up. And Ayatollah Khamenei is betting everything on the hope that the United States won't follow through. That's a dangerous bet, because Trump has already shown he's willing to strike. The carriers are in position, the aircraft are armed, the deadline is set. Iran is refusing to blink. The United States isn't blinking either. And when two sides refuse to back down, one of them eventually gets hit. So, here's the question. Is Iran making the right calculation? Is refusing to surrender the smart move? Or is the regime about to make a fatal mistake by underestimating Trump's willingness to act? Drop your answers in the comments. This isn't academic. This is happening right now. If you made it this far, hit like and subscribe for more real-time analysis of global military conflicts. No speculation, just facts. And if you want to support the channel, join the fleet. Loyalty badges, priority responses, and access to exclusive content. Click join on our channel page. Iran is refusing to back down. The United States is refusing to wait. Clock is running out. I'll see you in the next one. Thanks again to Supremacy World War III for sponsoring today's video. Lead a nation, command real-time battles, and face real opponents across the world. Remember to use the link in the description to get your exclusive starter pack, as well as the Elite Railgun. It's free for the next 30 days.